Hello friends, and welcome to this, our 19th day of pausing during Lent. And the word that we're focusing on today is poor. Poor. Jesus says at the beginning of his ministry, he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. We find that in Luke chapter 4, verse 18. Now this word poor appears many times in the Bible. Throughout the Old Testament, the poor, we read, have a special place in God's heart. In the Psalms, God rescues the poor, God defends the poor, and God hears their cry. Not surprisingly, Jesus places sharing the good news with the poor at one of the top of his priorities in his ministry. Now, the devastating suffering of poverty that we see in our world causes God to weep. Sharing God's grief means we act in whatever way we can to bridge that gap between the rich and the poor. And in this way, we can begin to embody Jesus' good news for the poor that he was empowered to bring. Now, Lent challenges us to examine how we can relate with those who are impoverished. We can ask ourselves, who do I know personally who suffers from poverty? What can I learn from the poor? How is God calling me to help in efforts aimed at alleviating poverty? Questions like these lead us to a greater faithfulness to God, whose heart is always turned to the poor. And so as a practical expression of your desire to share God's heart for the poor, why don't you make a small donation today to an NGO or some organization that works alongside the economically poor? We have one on our doorstep, Pagamisa, that uplifts the impoverished people in the communities around us. Make a small donation today to work between bridging that gap between the rich